Hi, peoples. Um, I would like to share a personal story with all of you. So I'm going to hop right into it. Um, this is the story all about how my life got flipped turned upside down. I'd like to take a minute, just sit right there, and I'll tell you about how I came out to my parents as an atheist. I was not going to do that until I started doing that, just so you know. All right, so I came out to my family recently as an atheist, and it didn't go as planned for a couple of reasons. So, before I start, I want to be perfectly clear that I am sharing this story not just to make a private conversation public, not to pick on my family at all, not to get any kind of sympathy, really, not to make myself a victim. I simply want to share my experience because this is going to be an ongoing thing. I want to share my experience because I know what it feels like to wonder, how do I come out to my family as a non-religious person? And I've seen this all throughout this last year that it's been now since I've told YouTube and the 3 people watching that I'm an atheist. But how? How do you tell the people that you care about? And just a few weeks ago, I just kind of dove in to see what it was like, and I wanted to do this, one for me, and one try to set an example for people who haven't yet. Not that you should always just tell your family, but because if you're going to, boy, it helps to look at examples. Okay, so I'm going to try to keep this short and sweet and jump right into it. First thing I did was tell my brother. I have a brother and a half brother. They're both my brothers, but one of them I've known my entire life, and that one just so happens to live with my parents currently. So I told him first. That way I could kind of get a feel of what I was getting myself into. He was raised the same way I was, and I'd argue more religious for a few reasons, but one being that he's lived with my family longer than I ever did. So I invited Zach over, and I planned on telling him that I'm an atheist. And I kind of joked about something first, and I think it's kind of funny, so I'll share it. For some reason, we were talking about music, and I laughed and said, "I don't really listen to much music anymore. It's basically the work of the devil." I laughed it off, and he kind of didn't at first. He just kind of looked confused, but I thought that's something that he would laugh at. But the reason he was confused becomes very clear with his response, which was, "Oh, aren't you an atheist?" And I slowly stopped laughing, and I looked at him like, what? And he's like, "Well, I heard that you were an atheist, and now you're talking about music like devil worship, and that's bad, and I guess I'm just a little confused. So are you or are you not an atheist?" And I was going to segue into telling him that yes, I'm an atheist, but I said, "Yes, I'm an atheist. How'd you know that?" And he said, "Oh, Dad told me." And if you're in my shoes before this predicament, your heart might have just sank, as mine did. Like, oh, great. How does Dad know? And I had a thought, and I was right. He found me on Twitter. He's the only person in my family who uses Twitter besides me. I just recently got one, but he's had it for a while, and he knows how to navigate way better than I do, I guess. But he found me on Twitter, and in my bio, my description, or whatever you call it, it says that I'm an atheist, a humanist, and that was a surprise to him. So he told my brother, and he told my mom. He said, "Hey, Max come out as an atheist. And with that pause, my brother thought, as he said to me, I thought he was going to say that you came out as gay. And I was a little disappointed that he didn't, because I was going to pick on you about it. And then we kind of had a giggle, but I'm just at the same time, I'm like, never mind, that's not what we're here to talk about. So, with that, we had a little bit of a back and forth, and I don't remember much of the topics. I explained to him that I believe in the Big Bang Theory and evolution by natural selection, and he was willing to listen. He was very willing to listen, and he just didn't want any of it pushed on him. And it went way better than I thought it would. He didn't really understand how I got to where I was, and I just slightly explained that it was a process, because it is. For most people, it doesn't switch. It doesn't just happen in a flash, and it didn't for me. So the time came to tell my parents, and that was difficult, even though they knew. I'd only spent a small handful of times around them since I knew that they had found out, and we avoided the topic, and I could see it eating away at my dad a little bit. Like, he had something he wanted to say. He'd get quiet every now and then, and it was not quite like him. So one night when I went to pick the boys up, they'd watched them all day. I was teaching classes. Before I left, I was like, hey, while we have a few minutes, I wanted to bring something up, because I found out that you guys found out something. And my dad just kind of took a deep breath. He's like, okay, shoot. And I was like, I heard you found my Twitter. He's like, what's that? Heard you found my Twitter. And he's like, yeah. I don't understand it. It was kind of disturbing to find out on Twitter that your son is an atheist publicly. That's fair. And I apologized for the way that he found out. And I think that's important. If you don't get to tell your family or friends first, I don't think that's a bad thing to apologize for how they found out. I think it's always best to be honest. And I'll explain why I wasn't more upfront here in a few. I talked to my mom and my dad both about, I guess, kind of reiterating it now verbally to them that yes, I am an atheist and there's nothing you can do about it. So eat that and drink this. I had no drink on me at that time. It really didn't go as bad as I thought it would, but it could have been better. It could have been, and of course it could be. They didn't high five me and say, "Oh, that's great, because we bought you a stack of Christopher Hitchens and Richard Dawkins books to help support you in your new cause." That didn't happen. Although that would have been the ideal reaction, if I could think of any. Yeah, so anyways, I want to go through a few key points of how they felt, what their reaction questions were, and tell you kind of how I dealt with it. First thing was, which I already mentioned, it was disturbing for them to find out, not from me. Second, they were definitely disappointed. They were definitely disappointed, and I'm pretty sure they said it. And as far as I'm concerned, that's fine. That's fine. You're probably gonna have that. But they did iterate that they still love me regardless, and they care about me and my family, and that's important. As condescending as condescending as that can sound, it is nice to hear them say that in a retrospect. It's like, oh, you love me in spite of it? No, they said it because they mean it. And you have to take it like that, or else you're hurting yourself. You need to listen to the words that they are saying to you if you want them to listen to the words that you are saying to them. So any sincerity that you get out of them, take it. Take it as honesty. As you can imagine, they didn't understand how this came to be. And I told them, well, it was a process, a long, drawn-out process, and I had to think. I had to think a lot. It wasn't just this isn't just a phase. I had to tell them. Also, they noticed that the last few times that I've been over, I prayed with them at the table. I didn't say prayer, but I would bow my head and I would be quiet and respectful during prayer. And my mom wanted to make sure I wasn't fake praying, was pretty much how she put it. And I said, nope, I'm not. I don't think it'd be much of a concern anyways. It'd be more uncomfortable for me than anyone else. God doesn't care. But I explained to them that I am being quiet and respectful because that is their tradition, and also I'm taking that time to recognize Dad, who worked for the money, who paid for this food that you cooked, and I'm thanking you guys in my head, and there is nothing wrong with that. I verbalized that, and there is nothing wrong with that. I'm not praying to them as gods or anything. I'm also saying thanks, but in my own way. And I feel like that's important. Next, and this is going to need a little bit of context. My mom wanted to know, and in the Bible, there are people. And my mom does genealogy, and she's really good at genealogy. In fact, she's gone all the way back to Adam and Eve and a few different family lines. And boy, if that didn't help me keep my faith when I was younger, well, what would? So, she wanted to know if I thought these people just didn't exist, and kind of to what point. And as far as biblical people go, I said, yeah, right now I'm not so sure. I don't think they did. Evidence is kind of pointing in that direction. I was trying to be calm about it. I was trying not to escalate anything, because I wanted this to be a short conversation to spark a better conversation later. I wanted to let them know, hey, I know that you know, and it doesn't need to be awkward, or it doesn't need to be as awkward as it feels like it is right now. I want to open this door. I want to be honest with you because I wanted to before. And again, I will get into that a little bit later. But as far as the genealogy goes, I know a few of you are thinking, she got back to Adam and Eve? How's that work? And pretty much you just get back to a point of royal lines, and then they connect themselves to biblical genealogy. All the boring stuff you skip in the Bible, oh, this is the son of this person, son of this person, the son of this person, the cousin of this person, yeah, it's meh. And I used to think, why would they fake that? They can't fake that. You can lie about who you come from to feel like you're important. Now it makes perfect sense why they would lie about that. Power, of course, power. But that's how that little thing went, and it was weird, and it's going to continue to be weird. So you'll probably hear more about that later. The genealogy question really sparked something in me, and I was not going to bring up evolution during our first talk, because I know how my parents feel about it, and you can imagine how my parents feel about it. Think about how yours might. So I didn't want to bring this up, but it made me think that if they're offended that I might not believe in their biblical characters as real people, well, they don't believe in the people and the civilizations of fossils that we found. Like all these lives that have been lived, way more lives that have been lived. They don't believe they ever existed. And that's a slap in the face to these peoples who don't live anymore. And not that they care, but I care. I care more about forgotten people like that, I suppose, if that makes any sense. And I think that's really sad. I brought up that I do believe in evolution, and that there is evidence for that, and contrary to these biblical characters. You know, fossils like Lucy, and fossils like anything else that's humanoid shows that evolution's real, and the characters of the Bible could have easily been faked. And my dad had to chime in right away without missing a beat. Those fossils could have been made up too, Mac. And I'm just like, yeah, I don't want to argue with you right now. This is not a debate. Remember that this is not a debate. Not with your family. So with that, I tried to drop it because I did need to get back home. I had work the next morning, and I didn't want to get into it anymore. I wanted to simply open the door. So I asked them to please talk to each other, talk to Zach again, and if you guys have any questions, please ask me. Like, we will sit down and you guys can ask me questions, and I will be as honest as I possibly can. One thing that they did was they accused me of appeasing my wife, which made my wife very upset. My wife, she was raised atheist. She doesn't quite claim atheism, though. She claims more to agnosticism, and well, that hurt her feelings because she never chose to be an atheist, one, and two, she just found it offensive. It's easy to see why. It's just like, what, you think Mac doesn't have his own critical thinking skills, or what, you think I'm just a mean, abusive asshole who makes him believe what I believe? And we don't even believe the same way. She isn't the one who converted me to atheism. I came about it my own way. She did slip in there my first understanding of evolution, which helped later on in my transition away from Christianity. But she wasn't the main cause. And that made it really hurtful to her when she found out that was one of their main reactions. I want to make note that it's very important to be honest with those who are close to you and that you want to be close to you. So if you think you can, be honest. Be honest. Let your loved ones know who you are and what you believe. And if you feel like you can't, there's a community here who will listen to you. You can talk to us, and you can talk to me. And I want to be honest with you as I was to them. One reason why I wasn't honest sooner was two reasons. One is I was scared. I didn't want to tell my family, maybe ever, but I specifically didn't want to tell them before I knew more about what I believed. So I've taken this past year, it is February 23rd, tomorrow's my birthday, and on my birthday last year is when I made my first YouTube video where I came out as an atheist. I've taken that whole year to try to figure out what I believe and how strongly I believe it. And I've learned a lot in this year. I may have learned more than I have ever learned in a year this year. And I'm very proud of the knowledge that I've acquired and the things that I've looked into. Reason 2, my nephew died in November, and that was very hard for the entire family. My goal towards the end of last year, 2017, was to tell my family before the holidays. Then I decided before Thanksgiving. And then my nephew died on November 17th. And, well, besides my plans, that ruins a lot of things. So I decided it was not the best time to come out as an atheist. Sometimes you're going to have situations that come up that wreck your plans. But when it comes to the people that you care about, sometimes feelings are more important. And that's okay. So always take that into account. But if I had told them a few weeks before I decided to, they would have found out from me. So sometimes waiting too long, even after a crisis, can be too late, and it changes things. All in all, it went way better than it could have, and I'm very happy with how it went. But it is very clear that we have a long way to go. So I will keep you guys posted, because I feel like it is important to share. And any thoughts or comments that you have, please leave them. You can follow me on Twitter at MacClark10, and you can always leave comments down below. So please like this video, and please, more than any of them, share this one. I would appreciate it, and I'm sure a few other people would too. So thank you very much for listening, and have a wonderful day or night.